A settler woman, alone on the frontier. A wounded Comanche fleeing death. And a decision that defied everything she'd ever been taught. But what happened next, no one could have predicted. Thank you so much for watching and for all your comments. Let me know at the end if you liked the story, and where you're watching from and why you're following this. Sarah Mitchell clutched her father's old rifle tightly as distant gunfire echoed across the Texas plains. At 22, she had grown accustomed to the constant danger that came with living in the disputed borderlands. The year was 1870, and the tensions between settlers, the U.S. Army, and the Comanche had reached a breaking point. Her small cabin sat precariously between two worlds, too far from Fort Richardson for immediate protection, yet close enough to the frontier to be in constant danger. The death of her father 6 months prior had left her alone to tend their modest cattle ranch. Many neighbors had already abandoned their homesteads, fleeing eastward to safer territories. "I won't leave," she whispered to herself, watching the horizon where plumes of smoke rose ominously. The Army and Comanche had been skirmishing for days, and the fighting was moving closer. Sarah had prepared for this moment, supplies packed, horse saddled, escape routes memorized. The wind shifted, carrying with it the unmistakable scent of smoke and something else, blood. Sarah's breath caught in her throat as she spotted movement at the edge of the woods that bordered her property. A figure emerged, staggering, clearly wounded. Even from a distance, she could tell it was a Comanche warrior. Her hands tightened around her rifle. The Comanche had raided settlements nearby, taking lives and burning homes. But something about this warrior's abrupt movements gave her pause. He was young, perhaps no older than she was, and he was alone hunted. The sound of hoofbeats drew her attention to the opposite direction. A cavalry patrol, 6 riders strong, appeared on the horizon, moving fast. They had spotted the wounded warrior. Sarah knew what would happen next. The Army had standing orders, no prisoners. The young Comanche knew it too. He looked toward her cabin, their eyes meeting across the distance. There was no plea in his gaze, only a fierce determination to survive. In that moment, Sarah made a decision that would change everything. She couldn't explain it. Perhaps it was the memory of her father's words about the senseless bloodshed on both sides. Or maybe it was simply human instinct to protect a wounded creature. "This way," she called out, gesturing frantically toward a dense thicket behind her cabin. The Comanche warrior hesitated for only a second before changing direction, summoning his remaining strength to run toward her. The patrol spotted the movement and spurred their horses faster. "Go," Sarah urged, pointing to the hidden cellar door behind her woodpile. The warrior understood, diving into the narrow opening just as the cavalry thundered into her yard. Lieutenant James Cooper dismounted, his face flushed with exertion and anger. "Miss Mitchell," he said, tipping his hat with forced politeness, "we're tracking the Comanche scout. Saw him heading this way." Sarah forced her face to remain calm. "I haven't seen anyone, Lieutenant. Just been tending to my chores." Cooper's eyes narrowed suspiciously. "Ma'am, harboring hostiles is a hanging offense, even for a woman." "I'm well aware of the law, Lieutenant," she replied, meeting his gaze steadily. "And I'm telling you, no one has come this way." The lieutenant signaled to his men to search the property. Sarah's heart pounded as they circled her cabin, inspecting the grounds. One soldier came dangerously close to the woodpile, but was called away before discovering anything. "Miss Mitchell," Cooper said finally, "you shouldn't be out here alone. The fighting's getting worse. We can escort you to the fort." "This is my home," she said firmly. "I'm not leaving." After several tense minutes, the patrol reluctantly departed, but not before Cooper warned, "We'll be back through these parts tomorrow. If you see anything, fire 3 shots in the air." Sarah nodded, watching them ride away, knowing she had just committed what many would consider treason. When they were out of sight, she hurried to the cellar. The wounded warrior lay motionless on the dirt floor, blood seeping from a bullet wound in his side. "I don't know if you understand me," she whispered, kneeling beside him, "but I'm going to help you." The warrior's dark eyes opened, regarding her with a mixture of pain and wariness. "Why?" he asked in halting English. Sarah paused, surprised by both the question and his ability to speak her language. "Because enough people have died already," she answered truthfully. "What's your name?" He studied her face before responding. "Tab," he said. "It means son." "I'm Sarah," she replied, pressing a clean cloth against his wound. "And we're both in a world of trouble now." Night fell across the Texas plains, bringing with it an uneasy silence. Sarah worked methodically in the dim light of a single lantern, cleaning Tabé's wound with trembling hands. The bullet had torn through his side, but miraculously hadn't hit anything vital. Still, infection was a real danger, and she had limited medical supplies. "You have done this before," Tab observed, his voice tight with pain. Sarah nodded. "My father taught me. He was a doctor before we came west." She didn't mention that most of her experience came from patching up her father after Comanche raids. It seemed unwise given the circumstances. "Your people and mine," Tab said, wincing as she applied a poultice of herbs. "They will not understand this." "No," Sarah agreed, "they won't." When she finished bandaging his wound, she brought him water and dried meat. Tab ate sparingly, his eyes never leaving her face, studying her with undisguised curiosity. "Why were you alone?" she asked, breaking the silence. "Scouts usually travel in pairs." A shadow crossed his face. "My brother was killed 3 days ago. We were tracking the soldiers who burn our villages." Sarah looked away, uncomfortable with the reminder of the brutal reality they both lived in. The Army's scorched earth policy against the Comanche was well known, just as the Comanche's retribution against settlers was legendary. "I should have left you," she said softly, more to herself than to him. "Yes," he replied simply. "But I am glad you did not." The sound of distant hoofbeats made them both freeze. Sarah quickly extinguished the lantern and crept to the cellar's small window. A group of riders passed by, not soldiers this time, but Comanche warriors, likely searching for their missing comrade. "Your people," she whispered. Tab struggled to sit up, pain etched across his features. "They cannot find me here. They will kill you. Just like your people would kill me if I wandered into your camp." Sarah countered. A fleeting smile touched his lips. "Perhaps. Or perhaps they would make you a slave. That's not reassuring." It was not meant to be. The riders moved on, their silhouettes disappearing into the darkness. Sarah released a breath. She hadn't realized she was holding. "You should rest," she told him. "Tomorrow we need to move you. It's not safe here. The patrol will return, and your people are searching too." Tav nodded, settling back onto the makeshift bed. "There is a place," he said slowly. "A cave in the red cliffs to the north. My people consider it sacred ground. No one goes there during this moon." Sarah considered this. The red cliffs were a half-day's ride away, difficult terrain, but possibly their best option. "Can you ride?" "If the alternative is dying, yes," he answered grimly. Sleep came fitfully for Sarah that night. She dozed in a chair by the cellar entrance, rifle across her lap, startling awake at every sound. Near dawn, she checked on Tab and found him feverish, his skin hot to the touch. "This isn't good," she murmured, replacing the bandage with a fresh one. The wound was inflamed, angry red streaks spreading outward from the entry point. "We need to leave soon, before you're too weak to travel." While Tav rested, Sarah gathered supplies, food, water, medicines, ammunition. She saddled her horse and prepared a travois crude but effective way to transport him if he couldn't stay mounted. As the first light of dawn broke across the horizon, Sarah helped Tav from the cellar. He was weaker than the previous evening, the fever sapping his strength, but determination kept him moving. My father used to say that stubbornness is sometimes the only thing that keeps a person alive out here, Sarah commented as she helped him onto her horse. Your father was wise, Tava replied, gripping the saddle horn tightly. They set out just as the sun cleared the horizon, traveling north toward the red cliffs. Sarah led the horse on foot, keeping to ravines and wooded areas, when possible to avoid being spotted. The journey was slow and tense, each exposed crossing of open ground a risk. By midday, the heat had become oppressive. Tebe's condition worsened, his consciousness drifting. Sarah found a small grove of cottonwoods beside a creek and decided to rest until the worst of the heat passed. As she helped Tab down from the horse, he nearly collapsed against her. His skin burned with fever, and his breathing had become labored. Stay with me, she urged, lowering him to the ground beside the water. We're halfway there. She bathed his face with cool water, trying to bring down his fever. As she worked, Tebe's eyes suddenly focused on her. Why risk everything for an enemy? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Sarah paused, considering the question. Maybe I'm tired of seeing people as enemies just because I'm told to, she finally answered. My father used to say that hate is taught, not born. Tav nodded slowly. My grandfather said something similar. He believed the spirits made all people from the same earth. Wise men think alike, it seems, Sarah said with a small smile. Or fools, Tav added, closing his eyes again. Sarah watched him drift into uneasy sleep, wondering if she was indeed a fool. Everything she had been taught said that what she was doing was wrong, dangerous, and wrong. Yet something deeper, something that felt like truth, told her it was right. The sound of a twig snapping nearby shattered her thoughts. Sarah grabbed her rifle, scanning the surrounding trees. For a terrible moment, she saw nothing. Then a figure stepped into view, bow drawn and aimed directly at her heart. Sarah froze, her rifle half raised, staring at the Comanche warrior before her. He was older than Tabi, his face marked with the lines of experience and decorated with red paint war paint. Behind him, two more warriors emerged from the trees, their expressions cold and evaluating. Please, she said, knowing they likely wouldn't understand her words, but hoping her tone might convey something. He's hurt. The lead warrior's eyes flicked to Tabe's unconscious form, then back to Sarah. He barked something in Comanche that she couldn't understand. To her surprise, Tab stirred, responding weakly in their shared language. A conversation followed, Tabe's voice growing stronger as he spoke. The older warrior's expression shifted from hostility to something more complex, not friendly, but not murderous either. Finally, he lowered his bow slightly and spoke in broken English. He says you help him. Why? Sarah swallowed hard. Because it was the right thing to do. The warrior studied her for a long moment. I am Nakoni, his uncle. These men, he gestured to the others, are his cousins. I'm Sarah Mitchell, she replied, still uncertain if she would live through this encounter. Nakoni spoke again to Tabe, who replied with visible effort. The uncle turned back to Sarah. He says you save him from blue coats. Take bullet from his body. This true? Yes, Sarah nodded. We were heading to the red cliffs where he said it would be safe. Nakoni's expression darkened. Sacred place. Not for white eyes, I understand, Sarah said quickly. I just wanted to get him somewhere safe until he heals. Then I'll go. A long silence followed as Nakoni considered her words. Finally, he gave a curt nod. We take him, you come too, Sarah hesitated. Going with them meant placing herself entirely at their mercy. Yet leaving Tabi seemed wrong after everything they'd been through. The blue coats search for you both, Nakoni added, seeing her hesitation. They find your empty home, follow tracks. That decided it. Sarah couldn't return to her cabin now. Where will you take us? Place between worlds, Nakoni answered cryptically. Not our village, not sacred cliffs, place whites do not know. The warriors efficiently constructed a proper travois for Tabi, securing him carefully. One of the younger warriors took Sarah's horse, while Nakoni indicated she should walk beside him. As they moved deeper into terrain she'd never ventured into before, Sarah felt a growing sense of unreality. 24 hours ago, she had been tending her garden. Now she was being led by Comanche warriors into unknown territory. They traveled through the afternoon and into evening, taking routes that seemed deliberately complicated, doubling back, crossing streams multiple times, moving through rocky terrain that would leave no tracks. Sarah's legs ached with exhaustion, but she refused to complain, matching her pace to Nakoni's without question. As dusk settled across the land, they arrived at a hidden canyon, invisible until they were nearly upon it. A small stream ran through its center, and the high walls provided natural protection from both weather and watching eyes. "We stop here," Nakoni announced. "Night camp." The warriors worked quickly to establish a small, concealed campsite. They built a fire so small it gave almost no smoke, yet provided enough heat to prepare medicine for Tabi. Sarah watched as Nakoni mixed various herbs and roots with practiced hands. "This will draw out fever," he explained, applying the mixture to Tabi's wound after examining Sarah's earlier work with grudging approval. "You did good. Not perfect, but good." "Thank you," Sarah replied, accepting the unexpected compliment. "Will he recover?" Nakoni's weathered face revealed nothing. "If spirits will it." As the night deepened, Sarah sat apart from the warriors, watching the stars emerge overhead. Despite her exhaustion, sleep eluded her. Too much had happened. Too many certainties in her life had been appended. She was startled when Nakoni sat beside her, offering a small portion of dried meat. "Eat," he said simply. "Need strength." Sarah accepted the food gratefully. "May I ask you something?" Nakoni nodded once. "Why didn't you kill me? I'm a settler, your enemy." The older warrior was silent for so long that Sarah thought he might not answer. Finally he spoke, his voice low. "Tab say you not like other whites. You see him as man, not enemy. This rare." He paused, staring into the darkness. "My wife, many seasons ago, was captured by rangers. One white woman helped her escape. Not all whites are enemies. Not all Comanche are friends." "My father used to say something similar," Sarah ventured. "He believed the fighting would never end until we saw each other as people first." "Your father dead now?" "Yes, 6 months ago." "Pneumonia," Nakoni nodded. "Good death. Sickness better than blue coats." The conversation lapsed into silence, but it was a different kind of silence now, less hostile, more contemplative. Before dawn, they broke camp and continued their journey. Tab was more alert, his fever reduced by Nakoni's medicines. He watched Sarah as she walked alongside the travois. "You are still here," he observed, his voice stronger than it had been the previous day. "Where else would I go?" she replied. "The army is looking for me now too. My uncle did not harm you." "No, we came to an understanding, I think." Tabi's dark eyes studied her face. "You are strange for a white woman." Despite everything, Sarah found herself smiling. "And you're strange for a Comanche warrior." "Perhaps that is why we are both still alive," he mused. By midday, they reached their destination, a hidden valley nestled between rugged hills, with a small permanent spring creating an oasis of green amid the arid landscape. Ancient cottonwood trees provided shade, and the remnants of old stone structures suggested the place had been used for generations. "What is this place?" Sarah asked, taking in the secluded beauty. "Meeting ground," Nakoni explained. "Long ago, different tribes came here to trade, make peace. Sacred place, but not like Red Cliffs, safe place." As they established camp, Sarah realized this hidden valley offered something she hadn't felt in months' security. Yet she also understood that this respite was temporary. Sooner or later, she would have to decide where her future lay. The path back to her old life seemed to be closing with each passing hour. 3 days passed in the hidden valley, days of unexpected peace. Tabe's condition improved steadily under Nakoni's care and Sarah's attentive nursing. The bullet wound was healing cleanly, the fever gone, though weakness from blood loss remained. Sarah found herself settling into an uneasy rhythm with the Comanche warriors. They maintained a cautious distance, but hostility had given way to a guarded acceptance. She learned small things, words in their language, the proper way to prepare their medicines, how they read the landscape for signs invisible to her settlers' eyes. On the 4th morning, she woke to find Tabe sitting by the small fire, stronger than she had seen him since their ordeal began. "You look better," she observed, joining him. "I will live," he replied simply. "Thanks to you." Sarah shook her head. "Your uncle's medicines did more than my care. But without you, the bluecoats would have finished me." His dark eyes held hers. Steadily, "I owe you a life debt." Before she could respond, Nakoni approached, his expression grave. "Scouts return," he announced. "Bluecoats everywhere. Searching all lands between fort and settlements." Sarah's heart sank. "Looking for us?" Nakoni nodded. "Lieutenant leads them, same one who chased Tabe." "Cooper," Sarah murmured. The lieutenant had always made his intentions toward her clear, both his romantic interest and his determination to protect her from the frontier she had chosen. Being rejected had wounded his pride. Now that she had helped a Comanche escape, his pursuit would be relentless. "What will you do?" she asked Nakoni. "We move north, to winter camps," he replied. "Safer there. Army will not follow so far." The implication hung in the air. They were leaving, and soon. Sarah stepped away from the fire, needing space to think. Her cabin was likely being watched. Even if she could return without being captured, she would forever be marked as a traitor. The neighboring settlements would shun her at best or hand her over to the army at worst. Tabe found her later, sitting beside the spring, watching water bubble up from the earth. He moved more easily now, though still with care. "You are troubled," he observed, lowering himself beside her. "I'm trying to figure out where I belong now," she admitted. "I can't go back." Tabe was silent for a moment. "Come with us," he finally said. Sarah looked at him in surprise. "To your winter camps?" "I'm white, Tabe. Your people would never accept me." "Some would not," he acknowledged. "But you are under my protection now, and Nakoni's. It would not be easy, but you would live." "As what? A curiosity? A captive?" His expression hardened slightly. "As someone who chose a different path. My grandmother was Kiowa, taken in a raid. She became Comanche, respected, honored for her healing skills. The people can accept those who prove their worth." Sarah considered his words. The prospect was terrifying yet oddly compelling. "And if I don't go with you?" Tabe sighed. "There is a trading post 3 days' ride east. Nakoni says the man there is fair, not like most whites. He might help you reach a place where the army has no interest in one woman." The choice lay before her: venture into a completely unknown life among people who had been her enemies, or try to reach distant settlements where her story might not have followed her. Neither option offered certainty. "I need time to think," she said. Tabe nodded. "Not much time. We leave tomorrow at first light." That night, as the camp prepared for departure, Sarah sat apart, watching the stars emerge. Her life had changed irrevocably the moment she called out to a wounded enemy. Now she faced the consequences of that choice. Nakoni approached, sitting beside her in companionable silence before speaking. "You decide?" "Not yet," she admitted. "Both choices are frightening," the older warrior nodded. "Life is choosing between fears. Choose the fear you can live with." "Is that Comanche wisdom?" she asked. A rare smile crossed his weathered face. No. That is old man wisdom, same in all tribes. His unexpected humor lightened her heart momentarily. If I went with you, she ventured, would I ever be more than a white woman among the Comanche? Nakoni considered this seriously. Takes many seasons, but yes. My Kiowa grandmother became an elder, respected for her dreams. The people remember who helps them survive. He paused. You saved Tabi. That is remembered. Dawn arrived too quickly. The camp dismantled efficiently, leaving almost no trace of their presence. Sarah watched, her decision made in the quiet hours before sunrise, not with certainty, but with resolve. AB approached, leading her horse. You have chosen? Sarah nodded. I have, and? She took the reins from him. I'll go with you for now. At least until you're fully healed. She met his gaze directly. I'm not promising to stay forever. But I need time to figure out what comes next. Something like relief crossed his features. The winter camps will be safe. By spring, paths will be clearer. Nakoni joined them, assessing Sarah with newfound respect. You choose difficult path. I choose the fear I can live with, she replied, using his words. The ghost of a smile touched his lips. Good, we travel fast now. Stay close. As they left the hidden valley, Sarah felt a curious mixture of trepidation and hope. She was leaving. Behind everything familiar, venturing into a world few white women had ever seen from the inside. The path ahead was fraught with danger and uncertainty. Yet as she rode beside Tab, watching him grow stronger with each passing hour, she couldn't regret the choice that had brought her here. In a land torn by hatred and bloodshed, they had found a fragile understanding, not peace. Perhaps, but something that might one day lead to it. What are you thinking? Tav asked, noticing her thoughtful expression. Sarah considered her answer. Carefully. That sometimes the boundary between enemies is more permeable than we believe. Permeable, he repeated, testing the unfamiliar word. What does this mean? It means things can pass through what seems solid, she explained. Like water through sand. Tab nodded slowly. Like you through the boundary between our worlds. And you through mine, she added as they crested a hill. The vast expanse of the Texas plains spread before them, a landscape of both beauty and danger, claimed by many but truly owned by none. Sarah took a deep breath of the wild air, facing forward toward an uncertain future, but one of her own choosing. Behind them, the dust of pursuing soldiers was merely a distant haze on the horizon, too far back to threaten, but a constant reminder of the world they were leaving behind, a world where a wounded Comanche and a solitary settler woman could only be enemies, never allies, but they had already proven that world wrong.